Frank Lloyd Wright, the architect, once said, "Less is only more when more is no good." For many of today's architects and builders, we are at that very point. The average square footage of new homes has almost doubled in the past 2 decades. Yet, many homeowners are finding that they're only really living in a half of their house. One person with a solution to this problem is architect Sarah Susanka. Her book and website entitled The Not So Big House look at ways of scaling back size in favor of attention to detail. Her firm has also been chosen to design the Life magazine Dream House for 1999, an honor putting her in the company of Michael Graves, Robert Stern, and Frank Lloyd Wright. I am pleased to have her on this broadcast to talk about the Not So Big House. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Charlie.
Now, where did this idea come from? I mean, how did you sort of figure out that most people, you know, it's a little bit like your eyes are bigger than your stomach?
That's right. Well, you know, as an architect that specializes in residential construction, you go around to a lot of people's houses, and frequently you see how they really live. And I've noticed very quickly that the formal living room and formal dining room were the spaces that people, you know, walked you through in order to get you to the part that they actually lived in. And even as
the den and
and the family room and the kitchen and that sort of thing. And as architects, we're always trying to figure out how do you get people to spend their money most effectively for their real lifestyles. And so we're certainly not alone in our firm encouraging people to look at the option of not using the formal living room and dining room, not building those rooms if you're building a new house. Mm-hmm. But if you can take those dollars that you would have built into a space that really doesn't get used very frequently and instead put it into the part of the house that you really do live in, you're going to end up with a much better house that really fits the way you live.
And when you say put that money into things of detail that are of quality.
That's right.
What's an example?
Well, you know, things are things that we have collections of, for example, that are very beautiful. I have in my house a collection of plates that I really love. Some people have a grandfather clock that they want to build in. Some special tile that you've collected on your travels, for example. Those kinds of things are expressions of ourself. They're things that really have import to us. And yet so frequently in our houses today, we're discouraged from putting those into our homes or building them into our homes. And so what I try to encourage my clients to do is to identify what it is that really has meaning to them and then to allow the house to be designed around those things. Maybe it's a piano even or something like that.
To design around the piano, if that would mean something to them, or television or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Or a game
That's
table or whatever. Are you finding out, or did you find out, that many people were building large homes and being miserable in them?
There's quite a lot of people today that are building larger houses because that's what we do.
Right.
You know, we've got more money and we build more square footage. What's happening is that people are buying these larger houses that have very large formal spaces because that's what builders are building and that's what realtors and appraisers are telling us that we need to secure our investment in our homes. But the reality is that we're not using those. So or very few people are using them.
In order to bring this to a point where people understand what we're talking about, we're going to see some things.
Right.
Give me a sense of the square footage, okay, and what's unique about it. Take a look at the first still. This is an arts and crafts style bungalow. Here it is.
Right. Now, this house really illustrates actually what I think of as the previous iteration of this movement to build smaller and better quality.
Which was when?
This was around the turn of the century.
The previous iteration of this movement.
Right. Arts and crafts movement. Gustav Stickley and William Morris were really promoting the idea of building smaller, high-quality, beautiful places to live.
To put stickly furniture in.
To put stickly furniture in, indeed. And so, you know, this really represents, I think, something that we often aspire to even today. A lot of people love these older homes, but the reality is we can build new houses that have this kind of quality and are smaller scale.
And have also whatever we've learned about efficiency, air conditioning, heating, all those kinds of things too.
So that they're also comfortable.
And materials and electrical products and all of that.
Exactly, yes.
Slide 2. This is a kitchen interior in which they have integrated a kitchen with the living areas, which is a good idea. You don't have to go separately into the kitchen. Here it is
That's right.
combine with other living areas.
Now this slide illustrates very well how you can combine informal living and formal living and kitchen. So you can see that the kitchen is hidden behind this higher counter space.
Right.
And so if you're entertaining, you can still have people in the informal spaces, but you can have them where you're actually living.
All right, next slide. The next slide shows an attic room.
Right. This is something that I think we're missing in our everyday houses today.
Which is what?
Well, we believe it or not, I think we are missing some spaces,
Yeah.
and there are several in my book that I talk about. But we don't have, once we're married, we don't have places that are just our own typically. We may have an office space or a desk space, but I think there's a need for people to have places that are an expression of themselves. And this is actually my little meditation retreat in my own house.
Oh, this is in your own
yes,
house? Yeah,
absolutely, up in the
you
attic.
actually meditate there?
Meditate. I actually wrote
Not in the
part
broader
of,
sense of the word, but in the specific sense of the word.
That's right. And also wrote my book up there to some degree. So I use.
You know what I do? Every house that I own, you know, in some bases when I move from one house to the other, I always take the attic as my own, regardless.
That's right. Well,
And
they're
say,
wonderful
because what you
spaces.
can do in an attic, no one really ever comes up there.
That's
so
right.
you can kind of leave things and work and leave things as they are, knowing they'll be that way when you come back.
Yes, that's
and there's
true.
no traffic and there's nothing
That's
else
true.
there.
That's true. And they have a wonderful form to them because they're under the eaves. They have
Right.
a personality to them.
The next slide you'll see is a living room where the hearth can serve double duty as seating with the addition of cushions.
That's correct. You know, one of the principal ideas in the book is talking about spaces that can do double duty,
Right.
that where you can have them perhaps serve an informal function when you're in the house every day by yourselves, but when you have guests over, can serve a different function. And this picture actually, for a party, would be a very good, you know, the hearth becomes a space where people enjoy sitting.
Okay, next slide, making less space seem like more.
This is really a illustration of alcoves. If you can see in the background, there's a space that includes a grand piano.
Right.
Frequently, when people are housing a bunch of furniture and a grand piano or a desk or whatnot, they make the room very large to accommodate it. The idea here is that by sculpting the space and creating a sort of a shelter around the particular activity, in this case that grand piano space, you can make less space do more things. So you can include more activities within one area.
Okay. Next slide we'll see is another example of tailoring to individual needs. A family wanted a dining room that could be turned into, get this, a dance floor.
This is actually for a wonderful couple, a client of one of my partners, and they wanted a house that would really allow them to socialize in their own way, and so there's a beautiful slate floor that goes all the way through the house that can serve as dance floor or dining room.
Now, most of these houses are around 2,000 square feet that we're looking at?
In the book, most of them are 2,000 to 2,500 square feet, but I actually make a point of not identifying the number of square feet that a not-so-big house includes, because what I'm trying to get across is that no matter how big a house you're thinking of, you can make a little less space do more for you. So whether you're planning to build a 3,000 square foot house, where you might end up, after reading this book, build 2,000, or whether you're thinking about 6,000 square feet and building 4,000, you can use the same ideas.
You do a very interesting thing. You take clients and you get them and you give them a tape measure.
Right.
And you tell them to do what?
To go and measure the spaces that they really enjoy being in. One of the things that we don't have any language for in our culture is what makes a space feel comfortable. And we throw out these sizes of rooms, like a 20 by 24 living room, but that size in floor plan really doesn't tell us anything about what the space feels like. If that space was 18 feet tall, it would feel very different than if it were 10 feet tall. So the tape measure just helps us to identify what are the spaces that really make us feel comfortable.
Take a look at this next slide, an example of the high end of a not-so-big building. Now,
that's right. This is a house designed by Michaela Mahady, one of my partners, and she has really, I think, captured something that we're missing in our culture today. It's a very romantic image in a certain way of house, but it has a lot of the detail and quality of an older home, yet it's new.
It does, and it fits nicely with the environment.
Absolutely. That's right. But the thing that, I talk about in the book is that in order to get this kind of quality, it takes time and care in the detail and design of the home, so that you've really got to have something that that captures our memory of home for it to really feel this kind of comfortable and
attractive. The memory that we grew up in.
Yeah, and sort of the archetypal image of home.
Yeah. Next tape shows rendering for the Life magazine Dream House. This is version A, the whole 9 yards. There it is.
Right. The firm has done 2 different versions of A House for Life, and this is one that has a lot of detail on the exterior and a lot of detail on the interior. A house can vary a lot in price, even with a very similar floor plan. And that has to do with materials used, the quality of detailing, the complexity of roof forms, and that sort of thing. So these 2 houses illustrate that, I think, rather well.
Now, when you think about the august company of Bob Stern and Michael Graves and all these people, big-name architects from, from the East, who have been asked to design for Life magazine for a number of years. I can remember 94, 95, I don't know when it started.
I think it was
Frank
6
Lloyd
years
Wright
ago.
a long time ago, too.
Right.
How did they know about you? What brought you to them?
They were interested in having a group of people who were already designing houses for the middle class. And we have had a huge amount of publicity through exactly that, through magazines like Better Homes and Gardens and Home Magazine and Fine Home Building, people who are really marketing homes and home design to the average buyer. And so Life magazine realized that they were really looking for something that would be for the middle class, and so looked to architects that had really gotten a foothold in that market.
When they put fine architects who in America who design for the middle class, your name came up at the head of the list, and all of a sudden.
We have a firm of 40 people, and we've been designing houses for this income bracket for many, many years, very successfully.
Why did you do that? I mean, because most architects, my assumption is, are looking for the big grant commission where they can go and let their,
Well, this started, I used to lecture around the Midwest on energy efficient design, and I realized after each lecture that there were people in the audience that desperately needed an architect to help them design their not-so-big house. They wanted a house that was within their means but was beautiful. And I also knew that there were very few options out there for them. So my partner Dale Malfinger and I started our firm with the idea of trying to serve that middle-class market. And it's a huge market that's quite underserved by architects right now.
Is it a profitable way to work?
Absolutely.
Because so many middle-class houses are being built.
It's not just that. People care deeply about their houses, and I think one of the misconceptions is that we have to go, when we're building, we have to go for lowest dollar per square foot. And all of the work of our firm illustrates that that is not the case. People are really looking for something that's very beautiful, and they're willing to spend a little more per square foot to get that.
I'm not sure how many people avail themselves of architects, and I'm not sure at what income level that begins to happen, where people begin. But it seems to me that architects can do so much for someone vis-a-vis their home, which is where they spend such a considerable portion of their time, that too many people don't avail themselves.
That's right.
A, because they think architects are only for rich people, or people who are going to go off and build some showcase home.
Right.
Rather than architects can do things to help make your habitable place more interesting, more satisfying, and more attractive so that you can have great pride in it.
That's right. And I think that a lot of people just don't know architects are an option, and I think that architects don't realize that there are a lot of people that are really eager for that service.
Who have a problem that they need to solve.
That's right. One of the things I'm trying to do on the website for my book is to, I have a listing of architects that are interested in doing not-so-big houses and clients who are interested in finding architects, so that we can start to really marry these two groups together.
All right, take a look at the next slide. This is the rendering of the Life Dream House. This is B.
This is what we call the back-to-basics version of the house. You can see the shape is very similar, but all of the complexity of detailing has gone. So it's actually closer to our archetypal vision of house. It's almost like the child's drawing of a house in a certain way. And the two houses, when they come out in Life magazine, will really illustrate the difference in level of detail and related costs.
Now, which one do you like, version A or version B?
I think they're both wonderful houses, and actually they're both built at this point, so we've been able to walk through them and enjoy them, and they have a very different quality and character. Part of that is the ceiling heights, part of that is detail and materials. They're both very colorful houses, so they use color to really enhance that sense of space and quality.
Your business is primarily architectural? Residential?
It's all residential, yeah.
So if somebody comes to you and says, we want a small office building, you say, that's not my business.
Almost always. I think we've done 3 or 4 other types of buildings over the course of our history. But
I may be wrong about this, but I think this book has done very well. #1 in house and gardening for the Amazon. And
actually, it was #1 of all topics on Amazon for several days, just before Monica Lewinsky's book came out.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it's been really,
is that because
really
of Life magazine?
well.
Why is it?
No, I think it's hitting. I think it's striking a chord with people who are looking for something different than what is out there. And I think there's a lot of frustration with the scale of houses that are being built. And in this book, talking about how we can use our dollars more effectively to really build the space that we use every day, there's something that really strikes a chord with a lot of folks.
Sarah Susanka with Kira Obolinski. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Charlie.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.